I'm wondering because there's this underlying element, because when I talk to a lot of students, the draw to spiritual but not religious is closely tied to an instinct to be tolerant. I mean, if there's one shared belief among California students is that we should be tolerant of others. I see that all the time.
Because what if you told me many times there are more religious organizations in the state of California than anywhere in the world?
Yeah.
So you better be tolerant.
Yeah, well, California is the most religiously diverse place the planet has ever known. But I think, part of the issue with the critique of California generally is Californians, we are just too tolerant for everybody else in America. Like we don't hold on to things. And partly what we've been dancing around is how tolerant are we of what can fill that gap. So here's where I want to prompt on it is, we are tolerant, but if tolerance means my spirituality involves pedophilia while sacrificing chickens in front of a Nazi flag, everybody's like, no, that's not okay, right? So we all agree that there are limits, and I'm wondering how much of our conversation is how broad are those limits?
Even when I saw that question before, I hope Stephen doesn't ask that question, because it's one of those things that we grapple with so often is, how far do I bend to myself to accommodate other people? And at what point do I say, this doesn't work for me, and I politely walk away? And so from a clinician standpoint, I'm all about if this is not something that's going to be a healthy conversation, you politely excuse yourself and walked away, because there are going to be many times in your life that you're not going to find common ground. And I feel like we spend a little bit too much time in a really progressive way trying to find common ground and get people to come to the table, that ends up people won't agree, but they'll become silent and they'll walk away feeling more ruffled. And so that might not be the popular answer, but I feel like there's a lot of places in the world that our time and energy is needed, and to put a lot of time and energy into trying to find common ground or be tolerant.
And I think there's an underlying fear, maybe less so now than maybe in previous generations, that it just might have eternal consequences.
Right.
It might. And so I want to be tolerant, but,
So let me just say, there's social tolerance, which we need to have. The poor do not care if you're spiritual, religious, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist. The poor don't care. They need help. The marginalized in our world need help, and whatever motivates you to help them, God bless you. It does not matter to me what motivates you to help other people. But there's an intellectual tolerance that makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm willing to say that anything can motivate you to love neighbor and to love yourself, but I have higher hopes for religion, that we can intellectually think about, like the correspondence theory to truth is one that I hold to, generally speaking. Something is true if it meets the facts. And so I want to know what kind of facts could we present to spirituality and religion, is put your money on the table. What do you got? In my tradition, you have the person of Jesus Christ. You have the incarnation. You have the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That I've experienced him personally, and I think there's historical evidence for the New Testament. Now, that's a debate to be had, and anybody in higher education knows that thing's been debated up, down, back around with really smart people on both sides. So I do think faith, the book of Hebrews says you can't please God without faith. I do believe it comes down to that eventually, but I don't know about intellectual tolerance, that I'm going to throw out the law of non-contradiction and say everything perspective is equally true ontologically. That makes me uncomfortable, and I think we've gone into a postmodernist turn that I'm uncomfortable with.